Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Warriors Corner for the briefing on cyberspace workforce talent management. Today's speakers will be Major General Neil S. Hersey, Commander, U.S. Army Cyber Center of Excellence; Major General J.P. McGee, Director of Army Talent Management Task Force; Mr. Todd Boudreau, Deputy Commandant, U.S. Army Cyber School; and Brigadier General Chris Eubank, Commandant of Signal School. During the question and answer section, please wait until you have the mic to ask the question. At this time, let's welcome the first speaker.
Everyone, can you hear me? Am I on? So I'm Major General Neil Hersey. I'm the Commanding General at the Cyber Center of Excellence and also Fort Gordon. So I am the force management proponent for the cyberspace workforce, which includes folks in the cyber warfare branch, including electronic warfare. I also have the Signal Corps under my force management responsibilities. I have two schools, the Cyber School and the Signal School, that educate our warriors. And I think that it was really a great act to follow in terms of what General McGee set up with the Talent Management Task Force and what they're doing, because what we saw when he was the Deputy Commanding General for Army Cyber is we started accelerating doing talent management differently with the cyberspace workforce, and you're gonna hear that from the executors at both schools in terms of how they do it. But broadly, what we've done was we, starting with the regulatory document that governs our career field management, our DA-PAM, that says what jobs are considered key developmental for different positions, what instructions promotion boards get. We started looking at really the skills that we need for the cyberspace workforce, which again, the cyberspace workforce includes those that are the 17 series MOS and includes the 25s, because those of you that have worked with us for a long time know that 90% of what we do on our networks is run by the Signal Corps. So we have to look at it as a total force. And when we talk about our talent management programs in both branches, both are really continuing to transform, because we're never really satisfied with the state of the art in terms of how we're hiring, how we're educating. We think we have it in a decent place right now, but we're always looking for new and innovative ways to, number one, identify the talent that we need. Number two, be able to effectively recruit that talent that we need, because we know it is a very competitive space. Industry and academia want the same skill sets that we want in the Army and the DoD, and we have to do a very compelling job to bring them in and be able to leverage that workforce. And then we've got to have a developmental process that very deliberately leverages the skill sets that they have, but continues to leverage their really their hunger to be a lifelong learner and develop them throughout the rest of their career. And then at the end of it, we want to retain them. And retaining means different things. Some of them will stay in the active force. Some of them will leave active duty and move over to the Guard and Reserve and take a civilian job. Others will move on to the civilian side but support us in a contracting fashion, or just be a recruiter for us to bring folks into the Army based on the good experience that they have. So what I'd like to do is start first with Brigadier General Chris Eubank, and Chris is a commandant on the Signal School. He's been there for about a year, and they are doing some pretty remarkable things with the Signal Regiment, which has a very, very important and difficult mission, and is requiring higher level skill sets than we've had in the past, when it was primarily tactical radios that we worked with. That's much more ones and zeros and much more IP technology. So without any further ado, let me turn it over to Chris Eubank.
Good afternoon. Thanks for coming out. So as General Hersey said, I'm running the schoolhouse, so I'll talk to you about two main things we're doing within the regiment that I think talk to how we're modernizing how we train and educate the signal regiment. The first thing we're doing is what's called MOS convergence. So we're taking our military occupational specialties from 17 down to 7. So we're going to go from living in a stovepiped kind of siloed world that satellite folks just fix satellites, services folks just work on services, radio folks just work on radios, to multifunctional, multidisciplined signal soldiers that will solve all those problems. So 17 down to 7. Those 7 will concentrate around IT services, radios, satellite, and networking. But all 4 of them will come into Fort Gordon and start in what we're calling foundational training. So instead of coming in and going straight in to become a satellite systems installer, everybody coming to Fort Gordon at this point is starting in what we call IP foundations. So they're all learning routing, they're all learning switching, they're learning IPs, they're learning how to splice cables, make Cat5 cables, and then they have to put all that together, make the network actually work past that before they actually go off to get their MOS producing identifier. So everybody's starting that way inside the schoolhouse. We're going from 17 to 7, and then the future holds we'll move from foundational training. We're going to add radios into that training. We're going to lengthen it, and so we'll go about 10 weeks there. Then we'll break out into functional training, so networks and satellites, radios and IT services, and then we'll break out further into individual functions and then finish it up with an FTX. But we have to modernize the way we're training and educating signal soldiers, because as General Hersey said, the way we're doing business has changed. And so that's how we're getting after it in the schoolhouse. MOS convergence, foundational training, the way we're training our soldiers is changing. Multifunctional, multidisciplined signal soldiers solving problems for the warfighter. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Todd Boudreau to talk to you about how the cyber school is getting after it as well.
Thank you. So I'm going to throw just a couple of numbers at you first. So the latest number is well over 300,000. That is the current shortfall in personnel that have high-level cybersecurity skills, and it's estimated by some to go to close to 2 million by fiscal year 22. But I will tell you that we're happy to say that the cyber school in the United States Army is not having a problem incentivizing folks to come in and join the Army. Now, our challenge is making sure that we're selecting the best of those. So one of the things that we're working with the Army Research Institute and some other commercial industries as well is to move away from a knowledge-based assessment. So there's a lot of knowledge-based assessments that find out what do you know, but instead looking at other skills, attributes, behaviors, not only cognitive, but non-cognitive skills as well. So we've got a lot of psychological testing going on to look at baselines, and just like the Special Operations Forces, what are those attributes, what are those characteristics that prove successful for a career? And we'll take all that in. And so that's where we're pivoting. That's one of the big initiatives we're doing. So we don't have a problem recruiting, but we also want to make sure that we don't have a problem retaining. So we don't know that we have that yet. We brought in our first 17 Charlies into the Army in 2017. So they're only 2 years new, even though we've got other folks that are in the force right now. So there's a lot of different things that the Army is providing us with to be able to incentivize those personnel to stay. Some of them are monetary. So based on your assignment and your skill set, you could get something from a couple of $100 a month to a couple of $1,000 a month. But even with that going on, knowing that the average E5, 17 Charlie, so Cyber Operations Specialist in the United States Army, makes about less than $60,000 with some incentives, may push up to 70 to 80,000, but the average cybersecurity professional with those same levels of skills can be pulling about 96,000. So we're not going to compete with commercial industry, nor do we want to. There's a whole list of other non-monetary incentives that we're trying to capitalize on. Quality of life, the ability to be able to choose your assignment. So if you were here earlier and heard what the Army's going towards, more of where you're being able to match your skills. What we're finding also is most of our high-level skills that we want to maintain, they want to do things that make those skills better. So asynchronously allowing them to be able to continue to train to get better at what they're doing. And so things like the persistent cyber training environment that will come online. They also want to be recognized for when they do really good things. Now, I know you've all heard about the trophy generation, so I get to see all the privates when they come in and talk to them and remind them that they are not the trophy generation, their parents are. Quite honestly, when everyone gets a trophy, when everyone gets rewarded, then it just detracts from that. That's not the individuals we want. We want the individuals that when they're incentivized to be able to do better are recognized for doing that. And I think a lot of the moves that the Army Talent Management Task Force is putting together allows that to happen. So the last thing I'll touch on before I turn it over to General McGee is going to come up and talk about our cyber direct commissioning pilot program that's been going on for a couple of years. One last thing I'll leave you with is within the Department of the Army Civilian, which I'm happy that they've done that after serving over 30 years and becoming a Department of the Army Civilian. They've looked at, we have 17 series soldiers that are working in work roles in what Department of Defense Manual 8140, the cyberspace workforce, calls cyber effects work roles. We also have Department of the Army civilians doing that same thing. And so how do we make sure that we give them the same ability to be able to train, be educated, and then be able to be developed? So the flip side of Career Management Field 17 is the Civilian Career Program 71. It was stood up back in May. CG Army Cyber Command is the functional component lead over that. His deputy, Mr. Ron Pontius, is the Functional Responsibility Office, and they also have the director of that. And so they ensure that this new workforce, which are predominantly the 2210s and the 0132s, there's some 301s, so all those occupational specialties that are common within the Department of Defense, how do we put them into a career program that ensures that they're able to get the training, education, development, and they have career maps that will bring them from interns maybe as GS 9s, 10s, and 11s, all the way up to GS 15s as managers and even SESs in leadership. So a lot of work that the Army is doing based on a lot of authorities and that have been given to us by Congress. So I'll be followed up by General McGee.
Okay, I'll just talk specifically about some of the areas of intersection between what we're doing within the Talent Management Task Force and how this links to the Army Cyber Forces. And luckily my job before this job was working for 2 years down at Army Cyber as the DCG, and I was in charge of the talent management process for our cyber down there. So I learned a lot of great lessons. And as you heard everyone talk, there's a whole lot of intersection. So one of the ones that is probably getting the most attention and really has a chance of really getting a collective lift in terms of what we're able to do is this idea of direct commissioning. So bringing in officers into the Army directly in, and Congress has given us the authorization to do that up to the level of colonel. So far in the Cyber Force, which is really sort of uniquely tailored for that, recognizing the wealth of civilian talent in this field to be able to bring them in and contribute to the mission. They brought in 7 officers up to the rank of captain, and it's continuing to look for other candidates that we can bring in as field grade officers to come in and start contributing. And I think it's, the cyber field is sort of setting the way, and we're using these models that they were employing to how we can do this in other fields. And because it's not just cyber that we've been given this authority, the direction for direct commissioning from the chief and the secretary is all branches and all functional areas are open up to direct commissioning. So we're taking a lot of those lessons learned. I think in truth what we've been stymied a little bit is just the timing and the process to get someone from the time they express an interest to get them actually hired, and through the course we're working very hard to try to truncate those times as best we can. So that's one. You heard Chief Boudreau talk about how they want to be handled a little bit differently, and I think that helps us sort of see some of these tensions in terms of the models that we run our officer corps with today are all really sort of based on this one-size-fits-all industrial model. So the development sort of timeline and conveyor belt system that we manage an infantry officer is the exact same that we do for a cyber officer and a signal officer, and we know that they're going to develop in different sort of speeds and in different sort of ways. And so what we're trying to find is that flexibility for unique career fields and areas to be able to progress at different rates and to recognize that. And then there's also this piece of incentives and how we can do that. As we start looking at some opportunities where officers might be able to opt into promotion boards earlier, you can see how a really skilled cyber operator who wants to advance rapidly up through the ranks because he or she has some unique cyber skills could take advantage of this as we start working some much greater flexibility. And then also, interestingly, we talked about the idea of assessments coming in. and how that does. And so there's a whole lot of overlap between what we're trying to do within the Army, and a lot of it's been informed by what's happening within the cyber field as they're sort of blazing the trail for that. And so it's been great cooperation, and again, a whole lot of opportunities as the Chief embarks us on this mission to embrace talent management as we move forward with the how we manage the officer corps, for this really to have a great boon to the cyber force in particular. With that, I'll turn it over to Neil.
So thanks, JP. So two things I'll close up with and open up for questions. So first, let me hit on electronic warfare. Electronic warfare in the past has been a functional area where you, as an officer, you could apply and move over, usually as a post-company command captain or a junior major, and you went to a functional course and then went and served on a staff as a planner. As an enlisted soldier, similar, you came from another MOS typically, re-enlisted and then went to a transition course at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and went to join an organization. That has been turned on its head now as we rebuild the electronic electronic warfare workforce into a very technically savvy, operationally capable force. We have now. It is now in the sessions branch, so you can now come in as a second lieutenant directly into electronic warfare. You'll be a 17 Bravo. You'll go through some very technical training both on the cyber side and the electronic warfare side, and you will end up at an operational unit able to generate effects in the electromagnetic spectrum. On the enlisted side, we have now 2 AIT courses running. First time that's ever happened. First course started in August, the second one started in September. That is, how many weeks? 26 weeks course that has mathematics and theory within the first 3 weeks. So soldiers are going into the recruiting station, they take the same evaluation test and have to achieve a relatively high score to join the electronic warfare branch. They're getting a first-rate education, hands-on, and all the technical theory that goes in behind it, and those will be joining the cyber workforce. The last point I'll hit is on, we're coming up with a technical track within the cyber branch. So those officers, warrant officers, or enlisted folks that have a technical inclination, a STEM degree, or technical experience can join the pipeline and become a cyberspace engineer. And we are standing up an advanced education program for the cyberspace workforce to educate them, give them an internship capability, and then send them to the operational force. That is underway as a pilot program right now, but very unique opportunity for those that love technology, want to stay technical, and want to do it for a career. You can now do that as a career in the Army pending final approval. So let me open up to questions. I'm sure there's one or two related to talent management in the cyberspace workforce.
So I guess my question is, you have a lot of soldiers that, they've been doing cyber or they've been doing EW in some capacity for, years and years. Mm-hmm. Do they also have the same kind of avenue to do a direct commissioning from like their work?
So the short answer is if they're on active duty, there's a venue through OCS. They can do it that way, or they can go to warrant officer candidate school and become a warrant officer. If they're prior service, obviously they can apply for it the same way. We have a couple that came through the direct commissioning program that were prior service, and we also have several that were completely from the civilian sector that had no military experience. Thank you.
Obviously, there's been a big problem, the backlog in getting classifications. Your people need high classifications. Are you having any problem? The people you recruit, before you can even start training them, do they have to get a top secret clearance? Are you having any problems getting that?
So thank you for the question. So many of the jobs in fact, just about the entire cyberspace workforce will eventually require a top secret clearance. We're working that with within the Signal Corps as well. for a significant part of that population. So as part of the criteria to apply to the branch, you have to be able to obtain a top secret SCI security clearance. The second part of that is how do we make the process work faster? I don't have a quick answer to that, but there's a lot of folks that are looking at ways to make that more efficient, not just for our part of the workforce, but for the government at large. But we also need to be very thorough in doing our background investigations. Haven't seen a particular challenge with it, but we never assume that we have it just right, and are always looking for ways to improve the process for that. Thank you for the question. Next question. Sir.
Sir, can you describe a guy that you would consider a guy or a girl for direct commissioning that's a civilian today? What are you looking for?
So let me let Todd, you want to answer that one?
So that's a great question. So as we do this, we're working very closely with Army Cyber Command and their subordinate units. So where the Cyber Direct Commissioning Pilot Program really finds its niche is what are those small niche skill sets that are very particular that would be very difficult for us to build a bench to be able to do. And so they could be security engineers, malware reverse engineers. We've got some folks that are working in the DevOps cycle. What we found is not only are we able to fill those requirements that the brigades wanted, but because of the working with the brigades and working with the operational workforce, even some things that they haven't been able to articulate, we've seen talent and not left talent on the table. And so we brought people in, again, we've got up to 7 folks that we brought in now. You would have to ask every day what the need is. That's how fast we're filling and how the operational force is going. But again, it's those low density, high demand, highly skilled that really we just couldn't build from a bench that they're able to do.
Thank you. Question.
Sir, thank you for your valuable time. I have a question. Have we looked at potentially utilizing the not to exceed contract program for government civilians? For example, I have some technical peers in some of my other organizations that they love America, they just don't want to cut their hair, and the last time they ran was to the refrigerator, but boy, they've got some great skills. Have we looked at the not to exceed contract for government civilians to maybe bring in that talent to the government workforce?
So Todd, go ahead, please.
So actually what you touched on, there's actually an initiative, the Cyber Talent Initiative, that was announced just recently. And so there's a number of federal agencies, the Department of Defense, the CIA, the FBI, and so forth. We're working with commercial industry, Microsoft. I know MasterCard is another, I can't think of the third, but in the partnership for public service as well. And so Army Cyber Command this year is looking at bringing in 4 individuals as a pilot to do that. They come in, they serve 2 years. During those 2 years, they get put into the operational workforce. We get something out of that to see if that's a viable way to expand it. They also get some training, education, experiences, and then they're guaranteed a position in one of those commercial industries that's coming out as a partner. And they can get up to $75,000 of student loan repayment. So we're absolutely looking at those. There's a couple of other hiring type actions that we do, but that is an initiative that's being worked across industry and private partners.
Thank you, sir. Question. All right, Chris, I got one for you. So, what is the future signal branch warrior going to look like 5 years from now, or even next year?
So as we discussed, 17 down to 7. So the future signal, we'll start with the soldier, is going to be multidisciplinary, multifaceted. So no longer will we have a 25 Sierra, which is your satellite systems installer that just worries about a satellite. They are going to do IPs, they're going to do routing, switching, they're going to help with the boss's Outlook calendar. They'll be able to solve all that. That's why we're going to foundational training and then the basic communicators course in order to create these individuals. From an officer perspective, every officer coming into Fort Gordon right now will get a portion of the S6 course. So the S6 in a formation is the center of gravity for the Signal Corps. So instead of just teaching an S6 course, all lieutenants are getting S6 curriculum inside the basic course. All captains are getting it in the Captain's Career Course. And now we have an S6 course out at CGSC. So at every level, the officer is going to be comfortable and confident in being a 6, either a battalion or brigade, as they leave the schoolhouse and don't have to come back to Gordon unless they see fit. We will still offer the S6 course as a functional course. And then from a functional area perspective, I own the 26 functional area, and so that's your network engineers and your service engineers. And what we're going to do with them is we're going to move from network engineers and service engineers to network engineers and data engineers. And so we're going to start creating data engineers over the next couple years to start looking at this data across these formations and how do we assure it, secure it, store it, and move it, which is what the Signal Corps gets paid to do when it comes to data. We don't necessarily own it, and we don't necessarily analyze it, but we do have to move it, secure it, assure it, and store it. So that's kind of where we're headed in the future from a regimental perspective. The warrant officers, so 255 Sierra, which is our cybersecurity warrant officer, has been a warrant officer that we've pulled from the other two warrant officers, so 255 November and Alpha. As of February this coming year, we will do our first 255 Sierra basic course. So we're going to start assessing them out of the NCO population just like we do the Novembers and Alphas so that we can close the gap on the shortage there. And so that's kind of where we're headed in the next couple years.
Thanks, Chris. Next question. All right, so I know that I'm the only one standing between you and what everyone else out there is doing right now, and I know it's late in the day, and you've probably seen a lot of things. So we will stand by afterwards if anyone wants to ask a quieter question. But thank you for your interest in our talent management process within the cyberspace workforce, and thank you for attending today.